All right, we are live, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk Lake County. I'm your host, David Rich. We have two very special guests on tonight, Lierre Keith and Ellie Cypher.
That's
Okay,
right,
cool.
Ellie Cypher.
Cypher, like cipher and decipher. Cool.
Right.
Code cracking. And these ladies, Lierre, you actually started Wolf, right?
Yes.
And Ellie, if I have it right, you joined a little bit after that?
Oh, 10 years later.
Oh, okay.
10, a little bit.
All right. So, yeah, I'm really interested in these kinds of things. What's that?
We were waiting all 10 years.
I was getting
Somebody like Ellie.
honing some skills.
Yeah, you have some formidable skills for sure. So, Ellie, why don't you give us your background real quick?
All right, and then we can talk. Okay, sure. So, I've been living in Boston and in Massachusetts for many, many years. I was born in Western Pennsylvania, and I'd gone to law school, and I ended up working in a small defense firm, in a minority-owned firm, which was a lot of fun. It gave me a lot of great experiences, but most of them ended with me going into finding a note in the morning. Ellie, go to this court and represent so-and-so, and tell them I'm on my way. And then I would do that, and the judge would yell at me and say, no, you're going to do this. I've been waiting for him for months. So I said, so I focused. I wanted to get some more criminal experience. So I went and worked at the DA's office for many years. And then I was appointed by Governor Cellucci, who was a Massachusetts Republican, which is what we called them, because there's really the only difference between them and a Democrat in Massachusetts was they were a little more fiscally conservative. That was it.
Right.
And I was on the appeals court for 17 years, which is an intermediate appellate court. And it would review many of the cases coming up from there were 7 different kinds of trial courts: juvenile, probate and family, superior court for the serious crimes and big money cases, district court for lower level crimes, lower money cases, land court. I like land court. So I got a lot of experience doing those cases. And then when there were some openings on the Supreme Judicial Court, and I was appointed again by a Republican governor, Governor Charlie Baker, and he was a terrific governor in Massachusetts. Everybody was very fond of him, and sad to see him go, but now he's doing other things.
Okay.
And so I have a lot of appellate experience judging as an appeals court judge on a panel, as well, or on the full court, as well as judging as a single justice in an appellate route when sometimes there's an emergency or something like that. So I would do that. A lot of writing, a lot of reading, a lot of research, a lot of mentoring, a lot of arguing with my colleagues.
Mm-hmm. That's what lawyers do, and judges, yeah.
Right.
Most of
that fun thing about the history of the Massachusetts court.
Oh, sure. The fun thing. Well, yes. I almost forgot. Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court is the oldest continuous court of review in the Western Hemisphere, and it was formed in 1692 when they decided they needed to terminate those witch trials. So that's
a noble beginning.
That's our history. Yeah, it's not. Well, yeah, it's nice. There are some errors along the way, but
of course,
it's done well for the most part.
Well, that's very interesting. Well, yeah, no, again, that's a very impressive resume. My closest circle of friends here in Lake County are judges and lawyers.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so I actually work part-time in a law office for one of them.
Skills. That's all I see now.
Well, I mean, I'm not like a trained paralegal.
Volunteer for Wolf.
No, I have a philosophy degree, and I think my lawyer friend just likes the fact that I can think logically.
Yeah, well, that's
critically. So that's why he put me in there. But no, it's interesting to see the inner workings of a law office, and I'll leave it there. Okay, and Lierre, why don't you give us a background about you? Like, start with like DGR and get up your way to Wolf.
Oh gosh, I mean, I grew up outside of Philadelphia, and I had a very liberal lefty kind of parents who were hippies essentially. They met in a beatnik cafe, which is a cute story. My dad was a child refugee in World War II and came to America in 1950. Yeah, he saw some pretty horrendous things.
Yeah.
Anyway, they got married in Latvia.
Latvia.
He was born in Riga. Yeah, and then they spent a bunch of years, like many refugees in Europe. They spent time in the DP camps in Germany, because believe it or not, Germany was actually taking refugees. So they were stuck there for a while. They actually were in Dresden for the bombing of Dresden.
Oh,
so
wow.
He has seen it all.
Yeah.
Yeah. anyway, so, I had a sort of the childhood that's like everybody's. It's kind of strange in some ways and normal in others, and who knows. But my mom was a very strong feminist. She went to consciousness raising in 1972. And I like to say the glorious results appear before you.
Yay.
Yeah, no, it was great. I mean, she got a wonderful education at that point, and she had gotten married when she was 19 because that's what you did in the 50s,
Sure.
and was pretty miserable. And I saw her misery like out loud, and it was just like, yeah, this isn't really a good life. So as hard as it was, she got back to school and put herself through all of that, and then they got divorced. And as hard as that might have been for some members of the family, for me it was honestly a pretty good day because my parents were really unhappy being married. They had done it too young, and it just people didn't have a lot. They didn't have as many choices then as we do now. She just didn't have choices. So anyway, there were a lot of things that happened to her when she was young that really drove her to try to understand, and that is where consciousness raising comes in, particularly for women. Was like this. It just seems like random bad luck or terrible things because I must have done something. And then you're sitting in a room full of women and you're all comparing the details of your lives, and you think, oh, wait a minute, this happened to all of us. Mm-hmm. It's not just me. And that's the political moment when you realize you're a class of people and you share a common condition. And further, it wasn't, ordained by God or created by evolution. It's political, and there's something you can do about it. Mm-hmm. And in the case of women, that thing is called feminism. So she was all in. And so I had a pretty good feminist upbringing in the 70s. Seemed like this like paradisical thing. Now that we are like so far into this insane like gender apartheid here, it's like, I mean, the freedom that I had as a child then, like we were really allowed to push and question, and girls joined Little League, and you weren't told you were a boy if you wanted to do basic things like skateboard. And so we had two rules in my family about games. We could pretty much do anything we wanted, but there were no war toys and no Barbies. And I really appreciate that my mother did that. I understand it, and it's like it made an impact,
Yeah.
So anyway, I feel like I had this great feminist upbringing, and then I was all in. I mean, I read all kinds of radical feminist books, just even as a teenager. So this has just been my life. It's like, well, what am I going to do? How do I push the world back where I want it? So Wolf was formed in 2013 because things were just looking grimmer and grimmer. As I looked around the world, all of the organizations that were supposed to be fighting for women had just stopped doing anything that seemed to matter for the actual core issues, at least from a radical feminist perspective. And all of them at that point were adopting this absolute nonsense about, transgender, whatever, that men could be women, that if you were a girl who didn't like the restrictions of femininity, you were a boy. You weren't just a girl who wanted to fight back. No, you were a boy. And not only were you a boy, but you were going to be given drugs that would destroy your bones, your brain, your reproductive organs, your lifespan. And then you'd move on to surgeries and actually have body parts removed. And the same is true for the boys, that if you were a boy who in any way likes the color pink or wants to dance or just doesn't like to be a rough and tumble boy, perhaps would have been a romantic poet at one point in the West. Now, instead, you will be given hormones and surgeries, and you will be fixed such that you now fit one of these roles better than the other. And that's it. You'll never have sex. You'll never have a sex drive. You'll never be able to have children. These surgeries are horrifying. So all of that was being adopted into the sort of liberal feminist kind of mainstream. And we were all supposed to agree that this was some kind of step forward. And it's also extremely homophobic. Lesbians are not allowed to be lesbians anymore. They have to accept that men can be their sexual partners. Same for gay men. All of their spaces have been invaded. Now they have to pretend that they are sexually attracted to women. And it's horrible. So all of that was just, so all the gay and lesbian organizations fell, all the feminist organizations were gone. And it was really depressing. And then there's all the ways that these sort of solid leftist organizations, even if I disagreed with them sometime, they got caught up in a whole bunch of that kind of woke nonsense. So the ACLU just seems like a nightmare now. It's not what it was when I was growing up. So anyway, I thought, well, maybe we can do something, because if we're just standing here waiting for the adults to enter the room, it just becomes apparent they're not going to, because one by one, they were letting sexual predators into women's prisons. And I was like, this can't be real. I mean, one of the big ones was in Massachusetts. And I was like, this can't actually be happening. And it was. And then you try to talk to people about it and they don't believe you. I'm like, no, they're literally putting a serial sex killer in the women's prison. And
He's
the
still
women
there.
are terrified. Go ahead.
He's still there.
Yeah,
I
that's
know.
his name was Robert Koselik, and
Koselik,
as a matter
yeah.
of fact, I worked in the Bristol County District Attorney's office at the time he murdered his wife. He was a transvestite, as we knew then, the term, and so he had murdered his wife, who was pregnant, as many women are. You know, if you're a pregnant woman, you have a high risk of homicide by your partner. And
Half of all mattering starts when a woman is pregnant. Half.
mhm,
No kidding.
Yes.
Wow.
Because
I
you're
know.
vulnerable. It's
Sure,
because you're
sure, sure.
vulnerable. And the vulnerability is like, okay, now I've got her. So now we're going
Yeah.
to start.
Okay.
And so he took off. He put on some female clothes and took off and drove to New York. And he was pulled over by state police in New York for speeding. And he just basically confessed. And so he was going to trial in Massachusetts, and you know we'd go watch sometimes watch our fellow prosecutor prosecute him. And I found out and as he was going to the trial, you know, his hair is getting longer and longer, and his nails are getting longer, and the shirt is changing, and he's starting to feminize a little bit. He was not on any hormones or anything then. I found out afterwards that his deceased murdered wife's sister was sitting in the courtroom with piano wire in her purse, ready to take matters into her own hands if he didn't get convicted. Fortunately, he was convicted, but then he decided he was Michelle Koselik. That's prison rapid onset gender dysphoria, right? And he also ran against the sheriff as the New Woman's Party. That didn't work. Running from jail doesn't work for sheriff. Yeah, and then since then, he's just made tons of news in Massachusetts and around town, the areas that follow this in terms of filing for lawsuits to be in the women's space, filing a lawsuit to have surgery, have it provided by the state. And those just went on forever in the federal courts.
Oh,
It's interesting to watch the progression across the culture, because when this first all started, I was living in Massachusetts at the time. Originally, people like Elizabeth Warren were like, they knew that it was going to be horrifying to the public, and they said, no, we would never. It would be so disrespectful. We would never let him have these like surgeries on the taxpayer's dime. The family, it would be such a terrible thing to do to them, and blah blah. And then by the time she's running for president, in the primaries, she's all in. And like that only took 4 years. She's just completely changed her mind and just throwing women to the wolves. So the other thing about him was that, I sort of heard this on the down low from Rhode Island police, but there was a series of murders, sexual murders of women that had happened in Rhode Island. And he was the only person of interest they had in the case, but they never had enough evidence to charge him. So, we can pretty much guarantee that's what he was up to.
And probably once he was locked up, they stopped those murders.
Anyway,
that's
where it all began. I just was like, somebody has to do something. And you keep thinking now, the public's never going to put up with this. And like, the people in charge of these, sort of lefty and feminist institutions are going to step in and say, it's enough. We're not having it. And nobody did. It's just like dominoes. They just fell one by one. I can't believe this is happening. So finally I was like, well, I don't really have any power. Nobody particularly knows who I am, but we got to at least start somewhere. So I rounded up 20 of my friends who I knew were feeling pretty depressed about all of this. And we had a meeting, and then thought, well, let's just do it. We'll start a nonprofit, and we'll see what we can do to advocate for women. So our 4 core issues are sort of our main, the things that we really work on are gender abolition. So I want to be clear, we're not, quote, gender critical. Like, I would not be slavery critical. Some things just need to be abolished. It's not that we have some problems with it. It's that it's just wrong and we're done with it. So that's number one. Generally, male violence against women, women's 100% complete reproductive sovereignty. And we want to stop all commercial sexual exploitation of women. So pornography, prostitution, all of that. So that was, the core, I think, of how women's oppression is organized is through those means. And it's not to say that people working on the more liberal, issues here are doing a bad thing. I'm really glad that women have access to, the public space and to, civic society, and can run for office and, have some political say. Those are all really, really important things that women had to win. But none of that gets to me, to the core of patriarchy. So that's why we made those be our four kind of core issues. So we are small but mighty. We have actually managed to achieve some things, and that is
Like what?
kind of fun to know that we can do this. So
Okay, like what things have you achieved that are noteworthy?
well, we've written a lot of different briefs to the court. So I feel like we have gotten radical feminist arguments into the record and into the congressional record. And one of the really big ones we had was, there's a case that was called Green, the Green case, that was in Washington in the Ninth Circuit Court. So it's in the Pacific Northwest. And that's the most liberal of liberal, it's that court. And this was a case where there were women who had it was like a beauty pageant thing. And it's not like I love beauty pageants, but the point is that they were defining it as women, and they didn't want men there. And this guy really wanted to join, and he was told no. And then of course he pushed it. So we were not, a member to this, to either, we weren't, the plaintiff or anything, but we did file our brief, and our brief argued that the arguments that these men make is that the worst stereotypes about women, that's how they define women. And because he wants to have long hair and long fingernails, that makes him a woman. And our argument is, like, those are the constraints that are put on girls to turn them into women. It doesn't actually turn you into a female body. These are actually the things that women have been fighting their whole lives, is these kinds of restrictions on our behavior and how we're supposed to look and how we're supposed to behave. So it's basically our argument. And so this is incredibly regressive that he says that this turns him into a woman. And the judge in that case, he quoted our brief. He quoted our brief. It was like, how did we do that? It was like such a victory. It was like, he got it. He understood what we were saying. It was like, no, you're right. This is really regressive. So we got quoted, and that was one of the reasons that the court ruled on the correct side of this. So that's one example.
I actually remember reading that case and feeling a little flutter of hope.
Do you write the briefs for Wolf, Ellie?
I work on some of them. Yeah, I help with writing them. And we've got another board member who's a lawyer, just is finishing up one. She's doing a great job. Nancy Stade. We would really, and Lauren Bone is our legal director. Like Lierre said, we really focus on trying to get in the arguments that are the radical feminist arguments, or that are pointing out the inherent misogyny of this trans system. And I love being able to write these briefs now, because for my whole entire career in appeals, I had to adhere to very strict rules about what you could cover, what you could review, what you could write.
Sure.
But now it doesn't matter. We can find the issue and we can write whatever we want as an amicus, friend of the court. And I know the feeling of seeing something. I think in Schermetti, I have a suspicion that they saw our brief, because Clarence Thomas quoted my pet peeve argument about trans and criminal law, which is that we have this movement that says, oh no, these young males, the 16, 17, 18, now 19, 20, 21, 22-year-olds, that may have done something really horrible and killed someone, but they're not beyond hope. They're not redeemable. So they're going to get a shot at not life without parole, but a chance for parole. And I never believed my point. I always thought, if you're that damaged already at 16, 17, 18, you're going to just keep probably getting worse if you're not locked up and separated away. But then you turn around and you're in the transgender world, and if you're 11, you know yourself, you know your mind, you're not going to change anything. You are just, you're a boy, or you're a girl. God made you wrong, and we have to follow the lead of the children. And it's like, those two things just don't make sense. So Clarence Thomas, see, I'm just not used to saying good things, but he put that argument in his concurrence. So sorry about that. But yeah, we work on briefs and try to keep it. There's a lot going on right now with all of
maybe they might not know about the Schermetti case, because they
right.
listeners probably don't follow this.
Probably not caring.
This was a big one.
I think everybody knows. Yeah, I just think everybody knows everything about this
because we live and breathe it. Yeah.
Right. And I was, before I get to Scrimetti, I'm going to write that down to remember, but I was just wanted to mention, Lierre, I too watched my mother suffer under not being able to do anything and being a very bright woman. And she did leave all these books around the house. So as a teenager, I was exposed to it and saw what happened to the women in my, her sister, her mother. They were, they were depressed as heck. But anyway, Scrimetti is a case involving what they call gender affirming care. And this gender affirming care is what they do to the children, the surgery, the mutilation, the removal of their genitals, the alleged refashioning of a new genital, which never really works. And especially when they're working on young ones like that. And so Tennessee had passed a law that said, not on minors. You can't do this to minors. No transitioning, medical transition through hormones or surgery of minors. And I want to give a shout out to the state of Tennessee, the legislature, because what they did is they made their law just about reversal proof by making all sorts of findings about the situation. So you had legislative findings, and they would find how many they put on evidence. They had little evidentiary hearings to figure it out. So they buttressed every choice they made was backed up in the legislative record with solid evidence. And I think that really helped that bill go through as far as it got. And then it, of course, went to the Supreme Court, brought forward by the ACLU and Chase Strangio, one of the leading people in this. And I guess they would have had a shot. They would have had a good shot maybe if Biden had still been president. But the shift in administration meant the argument on the brief was going to change. And so things started to shift on them. But even so, the clear, strong majority for not doing it, but for affirming Tennessee, saying, yeah, Tennessee, you're right. We don't want to do this to you don't want to do it to minor kids. Health is your area. Medical care is a state area. In states, we have state power. We have the police power, they call it. And that's health, food, sanitation, regulations of medical care, things like that are supposed to be things that really affect our daily lives are supposed to be managed by the state. And so the Supreme Court found for them, Justice Roberts kind of skipped the issue, which is what the trans people really wanted was to be designated a suspect class for constitutional purposes so that they could get equal protection and coverage and protection. But Roberts found a very narrow way through by saying, well, this is involving age and medical care. It's not discriminating on the basis of any other reason. So it's fine. But then you have all the, you have concurrences from Alito and Thomas, who clearly aren't going to put up with this. Coney Barrett, who wrote a good one. And then you had the three liberal judges writing like they still don't know what a woman is, which, how do you take people seriously when they say that?
It's grown-up people who have. I mean, she's had children. Like you know what a woman is.
There's it's such a complicated situation right now, and it's just getting all over the place, and I try to keep up with like the bigger pundits just to see what the national narrative is and that kind of thing. I watch Piers Morgan, which I don't enjoy personally, but
yeah, I understand.
He's got the kind of the nation's ear, if you will. So I'm like, okay, what are most people thinking, that kind of thing, and he's definitely not having trans in sports. That seems to be his big.
Yeah, that's interesting because a lot of people land on that. It seems that sports has had a special category in people's minds rather than the women that are living in prison with men
rapists
who are raping them and impregnating them and while they're she.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, use my pronouns. It is a thing. It is a big thing. Yeah, but you can't get that covered. We can't get that covered. We have a lawsuit against the prison in California that Wolf has brought, Chandler versus McGruger, to try to break this up and stop it and say, women are separate people. we're a biological entity. We are a distinct class, and you cannot break it up like this. You can't do that, because if you do that, we're gone as a protected, as any kind of class.
Right.
Once you let everybody in.
And I would really, if people are curious about this, go to the WILF website, which is womensliberationfront.org, and you can read all about our cases, including the California case, because we are suing the state of California to try to protect women. We are the only group that's doing this. So it would be really great if you take a look and actually care about really the least of us, because nobody cares about these women. You know, yeah, they're criminals. They've probably committed some offense against the world. Most women are in prison for what they call economic crimes. It's because they're poor, and usually there's a man involved who gets them to, kite checks or something. They're not generally not violent offenders. It's a very different world in women's prison than men's prison. But it's a majority of them are women of color. They tend to be really poor with really rough backgrounds. We all know this. And in any other instance, we would at least pretend to care about these women. And because men have suddenly decided that, they want to be in the women's prison, we have to all pretend that this is not happening, and just these women don't exist, and nothing that happens to them matters. And I'm sorry, but rape was not part of the sentence, and they're living in terror. So WILF has taken this on, and it's going to take a lot of money to do there's no way around it. It's $1 million to run one of these lawsuits. So really use your help if you care about women. And I just want to give one anecdote. We protested once in Oakland, California, on the steps of the courthouse when another horrible case was happening, when a man who was, pretending to be a woman had murdered a lesbian couple and their son, and it was his the day in court, and so we were protesting outside. But the thing I want to tell you is that after we were done at the courthouse, we took our banners and we went down to one of the main thoroughfares there where there's lots of traffic, and we stood there with our banners that said no males in women's jails and stuff like this, just really basic slogans about it. And it was like 98% of the people driving by waved and honked their horns and gave us the thumbs up. And it's Oakland, California. It's almost entirely people of color, Black, and especially the Black men. All of them were waving at us because it's their daughters and their sisters and their moms that are in those prisons. And it was just nothing but support all the way down the line. So the left has completely got its head up. It's what on this one.
Yeah.
They have just completely got this one wrong.
Okay. Maybe avoid the F-bomb, but
okay, no F-bombs.
Yeah, no, I try to keep up with stuff, and I saw just yesterday, I saw this reel or TikTok, whatever it was, of it was an African American mother with her daughter, and her daughter was going into a public bathroom. It was like outside a gas station, and there was a trans guy trying to go into the bathroom, and the mother's like, "No, you're not." Like, she's pushing him away. He's like, "This is for women. You go use the men's bathroom." He's like, "Whatever. Well, I'm a woman." She's like, "No, you're not. You're not going in here when my daughter's in here." So yeah, no, it's definitely, there's definitely plenty of pushback on this for sure, and it's happening a lot. One thing I want to mention real quick, I know people from like the Libertarian Party and the Green Party, as well as Democrats and Republicans, and Libertarians are very big into your body, your choice, doesn't matter, And as an adult, that's probably my general disposition. Like, if you want to do things to your body, it's your business. But I remember one of my strongest libertarian friends said, "But when it comes to children, no." And I'm like, "Oh, that's interesting," because I didn't expect to hear that from a libertarian. He's like, "No, I don't care if I'm a libertarian or not." He's like, "When it comes to children, it's a totally different ballgame. You don't get to do that."
Yeah. I think that's
you're talking about 4-year-olds, 10-year-olds, 12-year-olds, even teenagers. You don't even know what sex is.
No, I agree. You haven't
gone through no sexual
you haven't gone through puberty yet. You're not even a sexual being.
Yeah, I know. It's like you can't know what you're giving up.
Right.
And I have to say that most adults really have no idea either, because I've talked to so many of the survivors of this now, and they didn't know how bad it was going to be on the other end.
The detransitioners,
Yeah, it's like, I just don't even know what to say. Like, I'm sorry, you remove your penis and you don't realize you're never going to have sex again? Like, there's something... Nobody who is in that state of mind should be allowed to do anything to themselves that's that permanent.
Well, and we do regulate tattoos and ear piercing and other body part piercings and sign,
Well, then there's this whole other level too of, like, you're taking perfectly healthy bodies and you're turning them into permanent medical patients. And I don't know why anybody thinks that that's a good idea. Like, there's no other psychological state of, depression or despair or self-hatred or, whatever you want to call it, dysphoria, like, a disjuncture between yourself and reality, that we think surgery is the correct
Right.
You know, like we don't give anorexics liposuction. You know, we don't put them on Monjaro.
And we don't affirm
We
them.
don't accept that the delusion is true.
Right.
And yet we're
We-
doing really horrible things to people in the name of this ideology. And then, you know, 5 years later, they can't have sex. They stink of urine their whole lives. They're certainly never going to have children. And they're so depressed they kill themselves. It's like,
Mhm.
why did the medical profession say this was okay? We're supposed to have this thing called the Hippocratic Oath. And I don't understand
do
why
no
we
harm.
don't have some basic loyalty just to the human animal. Like, no, we're not going to let you mutilate yourselves and call it good, because we shouldn't be doing this to people. So I mean, I guess if adults want to fly up to Thailand and do something awful to themselves, well, we can't arrest them for it. But I don't think the medical profession should be standing behind this. The insurance company shouldn't be paying for it, and God knows we shouldn't be doing it to children. So I mean, I would drive a much harder line under this. And then on top of it, they want us to change everything about the world so that men can now be called women, and that destroys everything that women have. So they don't get to have that one either.
Right, right. And it's quite interesting in that regard, because the attitude, you know, when you listen to some of these kids after they've woken up and realized, oh, shoot, what did I do? You know, worse language.
Yeah, it's
There's
awful. Yeah.
it's a really sad thing to listen to and to watch. And there have been some public detransitioners, and they last for so long, some of them on the media. Some of them have fared better and they're still going and are great spokespeople for not doing this. But there, a lot of them come out really damaged, and in part because all the reasons they were vulnerable in the first place, as Lierre said, maybe sexual abuse as a child, or depression, or something going wrong at home, or they just have a mental illness of their, you know, there's hate puberty, they don't want to get pubic hair, whatever it is. All the problems that they had that made them vulnerable to this, they still have after they do this. And so now they've also irreparably impaired their body and mutilated themselves on top of all the other stuff. So
Right. No, I actually know somebody who just had the surgery.
uh-oh.
I'm sorry.
I
It's
think
just-
she's my friend's daughter
Yeah.
or son or whatever they
It
are
gets
now.
confusing,
daughter.
doesn't
It's a
it?
It is
daughter.
confusing. That's the part that drives me nuts the most. I mean, I'm very
Stick to
particular
reality.
about language,
Stick to
especially
reality.
having a philosophy degree. Language words are very
Oh,
important to me,
yeah,
and so you know,
And they
Uh,
matter in the world. It
they do.
matters.
yeah,
Because if you're calling a man a woman, then what reason do you have to keep them out of the women's room? You don't. Why isn't he allowed in the locker room with the little girls?
I know. And
He's
like
a
teenage
woman.
girls,
He's
like
not a
having to
woman.
change clothes in front of males and stuff like that. The whole Leah Thompson thing or Thomas.
Yeah.
whatever
It's
her name was.
horrible.
That wasn't high school. I think that was after high school.
It was
Yeah,
college, but they had
But
serious
still, I'm like,
post-traumatic stress
I mean,
after that.
what's that? I'm sorry.
They all of those women had serious post-traumatic stress after that, because every day they had to strip down naked in front of this
Yeah,
man who was
I don't
walking
have any
around.
kids. I wouldn't let my daughter.
He was
be okay.
walking around with an erect penis, grinning at them. And then they were told by their school, if you say a single word about this, he will commit suicide and it will be your fault.
That's just
Now, that level of gaslighting abuse,
Yeah.
that's definitely
it's
gaslighting.
horrendous what was done to those young women.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's but I guess they took Leah Thomas. Is it Thomas or Thompson?
Thomas.
Okay, they took her whatever
His.
awards away and erased that part of it. You know, like that you didn't win anything kind of thing. So I mean, local leagues and teams are taking actions now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm expecting a pendulum to swing back the other way, like you were saying, like you know all these people honking and everything else in favor of your signs and so on. So I think that's what most people think in this country about this specific issue, this specific topic. And, you know, socially, politically, and economic ideologies tend to swing to extremes and then kind of find themselves in the middle over time.
Well, 80% of Americans do agree with this. All the polling shows that. They don't want men in women's sports, and they don't want men in women's bathrooms. And this was actually one of the reasons that Trump won the election. So yay, Democrats, just keep being woke.
Right.
There was the swing voters who won the election. They would tell the pollsters just point blank that the quote transgender issue was the reason that they voted for Trump. And I know people like this who've never been particularly political, who more or less voted Democrat their whole lives. And then, you know, they have to come up to me on the street and say, I just want you to know I voted for Trump because of this.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm not telling you to vote for Trump. I mean, I think the man's a nightmare, but I get why people did it.
That's what makes it so
People
difficult.
hate me for saying that, but I do
know.
understand. If this was your daughter, you would feel that strongly about it.
100%. Yeah, but that's what makes it even more complicated and
I know.
difficult is that you have to side with somebody who is like on almost every other issue is
I
just
know.
a pile
I
of garbage.
know.
You know, so
I know. I could never
Yeah.
vote. There's no
So
way I could ever
difficult.
vote for him. I know.
that's why
And
we
it's
need
put
more.
everybody in this just horrible situation. So
Yeah.
and this is one of the reasons. So one of our other successful actions is last fall last spring in May, a whole bunch of women went to Washington D.C. and we lobbied both the Democrats and Republicans in Congress, and especially on this issue. If we had time, we talked about other things, but we really wanted to explain this to them because the Democrats are doubling down, and that means they're going to lose the midterms and they're going to lose the next presidential election. And
Right.
until they decide to snap out of it and stop listening to their 25-year-old, whoever's working in their offices, their interns, and actually listen to the American public, they're going to keep losing. So it's going to be even more devastating at the next presidential election.
Right.
I don't see a lot of hope that they're pulling out of this. They don't seem to be. The few that try get so completely stomped by their colleagues, because we had that one guy in Massachusetts, the other guy in New York, and then Gavin Newsom floated a tiny balloon.
He's staying out there a little bit. He's
like
hanging
in
men and women's sports either.
All right, good.
No.
I mean, he's an athlete. So is his wife, and all of his kids are really involved in sports.
Mhm.
So this probably does matter to him
Yeah.
on a basic fairness level. But okay, the prisons, Gavin, come on. So he's got that whole podcast, and one of my goals is I want him to have to talk to the women in prison on his podcast.
Right.
I want him to have to answer to them. Why is he still letting this happen to women in prison? Why do they not matter, Gavin? You're supposed to have this podcast where you listen to all sides. Why don't you listen to the women?
Some of the women,
you tell me why they have to go through this.
some of the women in the federal prisons have started filing motions for compassionate release, which is what was intended for when somebody's very ill and old and sick. But they're saying, I need compassionate release because this is making me very, very psychologically unsafe and physically unsafe. And there's some hope that some of the judges will see their way through on that, which would be good. But
in some of the prisons, the women are literally sleeping in shifts because if there's 8 of them in a room and there's one man who they know is a rapist, there's no way to be safe. So they do it, in chunks of hours so that some of them are always asleep and some of them are always awake, so they can at least feel a tiny bit safe while they sleep. But
there was a
it's
case,
just horrendous.
It is awful. There was a case in New York City recently involving this young man he just turned 18, but apparently they'd been treating him as a female since he was like 15, and he had a series of crimes that he was racking up, but they were always letting him go. So finally he's 18, he's still booked as a woman, and he's got breasts and he's got hair, but the first night in there, he attacked and beat the crap out of another woman. I mean, not another woman, but a prisoner, and very injured. She had injuries. She's had her fingers broken. She still has not been brought to a hospital. And her mother reached out to Wolf, and so we connected her with a group in New York called Roar, and they did some work to try to help. And then there's still some other people we've been able to bring in to help. But it's like getting that network going is so important, which is why contact us if you want to be a part of it. I'm also looking in Illinois. I'm looking for anybody who wants to either be a plaintiff against the state in terms of the education law that says they have to be taught that gender education. So we're looking for a plaintiff for a case like that. So as another lawyer from Illinois has already got all the work done. He just needs somebody who's willing to be public to say schools stop this. But I'm also looking for somebody who has connections into the women's prison, because it's very hard to find out who needs you unless you know their name and their registration number. You cannot just start calling them up and going over to the prison to say, hey, you got any women who want to sue? So if anybody out there is listening in Illinois, we need a plaintiff against the school system and the state, and we need women in contact with women in prison in Illinois.
Okay, Ellie, after we're done being live here, let's hang on, and I might be able to help you. I don't
Oh.
know. I just know I know a lot of local politicians, judges, and lawyers, like a
Okay.
lot.
Nice.
I don't know if they have access to the statewide prison system. I'm guessing one of them does somehow, some way. So let's like maybe exchange
Sure.
information. I might,
Absolutely.
no promises.
No promises. It's
Okay.
okay.
Because that's just outrageous that they allow that to happen. I'm trying to like kind of get in the mind of like the court system or the prison system in California and Massachusetts say
Well,
like,
what happened?
why they would think that that's okay to do in the first
The
place.
same reason the
She
schools
knows.
do. I know why. It's the same reason the schools do it. It's the same reason the hospitals did it, and any educational facility. It came in through training programs. It came in through. Do you remember the Trevor Project? Was it gets better. It was about gay kids. It was targeted to gay kids. Well, the trans hijacked that, and then they built curriculum to teach under the national. It's called National Sex Education Standards. Well, you think that sounds very official, but it's actually all related to gender identity and the whole goal. And they promote curriculum and they go out there and they get it in the schools. But then coming in, everybody's wanted training. You know, everybody needed to fill their training quota. So you'd get somebody for, on DEI or anti-workplace bullying or diversity. And that's where the program came in to teach you about this new wonderful thing and how you cannot not use the pronouns, and you better do this and you better do that. And a lot of people were very susceptible, and judges were trained with that. Lawyers were trained in that. In many of the liberal places, it becomes a badge of honor, or it'd be a badge of dishonor not to believe in it. You just be ostracized totally.
Well,
So they trained it into everybody.
Yeah, I gotcha. Because I know that, like, if you're a convicted felon, like according to the Constitution, if you read past the first sentence of the 13th Amendment, you're a slave to the state, in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when I first started hearing about these, attacks and men being in women's prisons and accosting women. I'm like, I don't understand how the court system was so lenient enough to do that. Like these are criminals.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like school is, just as bad in the school, but these are the kids in school aren't criminals. These are violent criminals that you're putting into women's prisons. Like, I don't understand why you would do that.
There's been a lot of, there was a lot of attention years ago on rape in male prisons, and trans prisoners were presented as victims of being abused and brutalized and raped in the male prisons. Well, but right now, so you have there's a federal case going on. I was just listening to it on Friday, and there are 19 trans identifying males in this lawsuit. They've gotten their transfers stopped under the executive order. Put an injunction on that, stop that. And so they were arguing before this appeals court in the United States District Court, appeals court for DC, the district DC circuit. And but you find out reading the briefs from the government that actually there's another 4,000 of them in the men's prison, not wanting to transfer. They don't want to transfer. They're happy.
Interesting.
So why?
Well, go ahead. Sorry, I don't mean to.
You go ahead. You tell me. I think you can guess.
It completely breaks down according to who they want to have sex with.
Right.
If they are men who want to have sex with men, even though they're pretending they're women, they want to stay in the men's prison because they have access to their sexual partners. Yeah. And if they are men who want to have sex with women and pretend they're lesbians, even though they're men, they'll still do the same, wear the stupid costume, whatever. But they want to be transferred to the women so that they can have access to women to have sex with. That's literally how it breaks down.
And the story has changed now, if you really look at the numbers, because the rape statistics have gone way down in the male prison, but they're rising in the female prison, and the judge just can't figure out why.
Why? All the men who have been put into prison. Oh no, they're women, just like me and Allie are women.
Well, one of the questions she asked, well, there were 3 judges, but she stuck out for this question to me, was she asked the lawyer, one of the lawyers for the trans prisoners, well, are any of these 19, will they be able to are they so female that they won't be able to pass as men in the men's prison? Like, will they be outed right away by looking at them? Which, if you look at any of the ones in the news or any of the inmates, they're nowhere near close to being.
Come on. We all know what a man looks like.
I know, and you still can figure it out.
He's gonna have the skeleton and the facial proportions and the muscle mass, and he walks like a man because his joints are different. It's like, who is fooled by this?
I know.
It's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. It is. That got me. That one really did.
I know it happens extremely infrequently, but I mean, there are some people that are born with both genitalia.
Well,
no,
there's not. No, I'm sorry, there's not. That has never once happened in the history because it comes from the same fetal, the same tissue developmentally. So there's a pathway. So it has to go one way or the other. You're not born with two sets where one could be one and one could go the other. And the pathway closes off pretty quickly in utero and in fetal development.
What you
so
can
get is literally, unless you're Siamese twins, there is literally no way to have both sets of genitalia. You're going to have one or the other. They might be malformed, and it might be a biological emergency where you can't urinate or something, and then they do surgeries.
And there are some disorders of sexual development, they call it, where they used to try to put it under the word intersex or hermaphrodite or whatever, but
that's not a
disorder of sexual development is what it is. And there are female ones and male ones, and you might have more of you might have a smaller penis if you're a male, but that doesn't mean it's a clitoris. So they are very distinct biologically, and there is no one born in the middle.
Okay, I guess I was misinformed. I'll have to look that
well,
up.
and they will try to confuse you. I mean, they do this on purpose. Like, they'll do this little gish gallop around you about the intersex, which is a total misnomer. Sex is absolutely it's not a spectrum. It is absolutely a binary. There's nobody that's between. As confusing as some of their body parts might look on occasion, they're still either male or female. There's not anybody that's not one or the other.
Interesting. Okay, real quick. My Aunt Terry is watching. She said, "Am I the only one that lost audio?" Terry, can you hear us now?
No.
I hear you.
No, we haven't lost audio.
Oh, we haven't. No.
I hear all of you. Yeah.
Okay, I don't know. Terry, can you hear me? Okay, anyway. Okay, that's what. Yeah, I'll have to look into that because I remember hearing that years ago, and that they had to kind of flip a coin and pick one, and sometimes they pick the wrong one. And
no, that's
all
not
propaganda.
They might. What often would happen in previous decades, like in the 50s, if a boy was born and his penis was really malformed, they would do this terrible thing where they would remove all the tissue and tell the parents raise him as a girl, and it didn't really work because it still was a male body. But it's somehow like the worst horror of patriarchy is to have, a micro penis or a malfunctioning penis. And then, you can't change that body into a female body. It's always going to be a male body. And what these people have argued for themselves for decades is just leave us alone unless it's a real medical emergency. When we're older, if we want to have some kind of surgery, we will do that as adults. But for now, just leave our bodies be. As long as they're functioning, who cares? We'll work it out and we'll do what we need to do when we're adults. And that has pretty much been now, the policy of the medical, the whole sort of medical background to this is the doctors really have changed their minds about it. They don't do those kinds of surgeries anymore on otherwise healthy children. If it's not necessary, you just leave it be. But they can do with a cheek swab now. They can tell you within 12 hours what's wrong with the baby, which exactly one of these disorders it has, and what's your best prognosis. The lifespan, what kind of problems they're going to have reproductively or sexually, or like what can you expect as they get older. Because there aren't that many. I mean, there's only like 40 disorders that will produce an actual living baby. Everything else that can go wrong, you'll have a spontaneous abortion. So there really aren't that many pathways out.
But they sure have been used.
Yeah, they have.
They have been used.
The whole trans, their whole sort of their ideology, they love to pretend that this is, that we're all on a spectrum and it's just all, you can sort of pick and choose which one you want to be because it doesn't really matter. And, and then they'll just spin you around with like, well, what about people who have Klinefelters? Like, they're male. They don't know what to tell you. They are male. They're nothing else but male. They're going to have problems, but it's,
Right.
And they try to with the sex as a spectrum is what's on the spectrum are sex characteristics. Like you may be a tall man or a short man. You may have a more masculine appearance as a woman, or whatever the secondary sex characteristics are of breasts and genitalia and hair. There's a spectrum, but it's not. That doesn't make your sex change. And that's what they confuse people with. They'll say the hair, this one and that sex, the gonads and the, I forget what, they have a whole list of things. Is it gonadal sex? Is it hormonal sex? Is it chromosomal sex? No, it's your body's organized around large gametes or small gametes. And that's it.
It's one development pathway or the other. That whole thing about the 5 sexes, that comes from a book called, the author's name is Anne Foster Sterling. And what was the name of the book? I've got it on my shelf. Anyway, she's a philosopher. She's not a biologist. And she sort of came up with this sort of musing about, well, what if there are 5 sexes? Blah, blah, blah. We all have, and she took it back later. Yeah, sexes. She said there's 5. And so the biological, the gonadal, the hormonal, the blah, whatever the others were. And then she took it all back because it all went crazy out there. But they use this argument all the time to try to confuse people. Like, well, what if you have lower testosterone or higher testosterone? I'm sorry, there is no overlap between female testosterone and male levels of testosterone. Literally none. If you had that much testosterone as a woman, you would die. Even women who have things like PCOS, it's higher than women should have. And you're going to have
some of them have tried to include them PCOS.
No, and the women with PCOS are really mad about it. Like, I'm not a man. I'm a woman with ovaries that are malfunctioning. Like, stop calling me a man. This is not a DSD. It's its own condition, and it only affects women because we're the only ones with ovaries. But they'll hijack all of this to try to say, that it's trans is everywhere and it's totally biological, and it's not. This is a psychological issue. It's a political issue, but it's not a biological issue.
What's fascinating too is what's pushed this through is money. I mean, there's been an awful lot of money behind it, and
they've got billionaires.
Be interesting to see that. I once saw a market study on what they expected over the next 5 years in terms of profits for transgender medical care, and it was over $30 billion for the United States.
Oh,
profit.
But
things have been interrupted.
It's lifelong. It's lifelong. Like, you will need to take these exogenous hormones, and they are going to destroy your body in XYZ ways. And then you're going to need to have help when your liver starts failing and your kidneys start failing and your bones start crumbling. All of this is more medical intervention. Plus all the cosmetic surgeries that they seem to demand as part of their mental health. You're going to want breast implants if you're a man pretending, or you're going to want to have, and you should, all of you, if you don't, go look at the pictures online. It is horrendous what they are doing to people's bodies.
Oh, I've seen some short
horrible.
videos of what they do with
horrible. It's genital mutilation. There's no other word for it. I don't think these things should be legal. I think it's horrendous to do this to people's bodies. People have to learn to inhabit the only home that they have. There's nothing wrong with anyone's body, and I'm not budging from that. There's nothing wrong.
Yeah, like the motto that you were, I was born in the wrong body always struck me.
You're not. It's yours. It's the only one.
I'm like, what is that? I don't understand what that means.
It's a nonsense statement.
I was told by my students, right? I was told by my students that the reason I don't understand that is because I am a cisgender woman whose identity has always been in alignment with my sex.
Right.
So that's why I don't even know what they're talking about. And I'm very fortunate. See.
Okay, so I actually found a clip yesterday, and I meant to email it to you, Lierre, because it's about what we're talking about right now. And it's a perfectly articulated argument, and I'm not going to be able to recreate it right now, and I apologize. After the show, I will email or text it to you, and you'll be like, exactly. So we're almost at an hour. That was very fast.
We barely started.
I know, and I don't want to go too long over an hour, but do you want to talk about? We talked about trans for almost an hour. Give me a couple more of the you said there was 4 kind of pillars here.
Yeah.
Go ahead with the other ones.
Well, we're actually making progress in stopping pornography a little bit in this country and around the world. And the sneaky way in was the age verification laws, which aren't really the perfect feminist response to this, but it's like good enough. Let's try. And so when they first started them, it was in Texas and Louisiana, I think, were the first 2 states. And what it means is, so for you to get onto Pornhub, you have to prove that you're over 18. And the way that they did it was you have to go through the Department of Motor Vehicles, through the driver's license people, and then have your identity verified. And then, you're over 18. And the moment that they did that, it dropped to 0. No men were actually willing to go on record.
So that
there's still a tiny bit of shame in there about this material that they are finding so attractive. So overnight, and then Pornhub came in and just shut their site down in that state because they were so upset about what was happening. And so around the country, and now it's happening around the world. They're doing it in England too, and other places in Europe. It's actually kind of working to stop access, a sort of mass access to essentially sexual abuse materials. That's what they are. And so, yeah, and so we absolutely, we're all behind it, even though, like I'll say, it's not the most perfect feminist response, but it's taken a dent out of it. And we've submitted different testimonies about the harms of pornography, violence against women.
And we filed an amicus on that in the Paxton case, which was the governor of Texas being sued for not vetoing that law and letting it go through. So
interesting. Okay, but I want to ask you about this. It's not my attempt to push back on anything. I'm just trying to expand
you can push back. We got arguments.
No. This is not it's not my place to push back. But I was looking at this, to like checking out what Wolf is about and your positions on different things categorically. I found that sex positive feminism, like feminists who think that pornography, the industry is problematic and can be fixed up for sure, but pornography in and of itself is not a negative. In fact, it promotes female sexuality. What would you say to that?
You could turn on your computer and you could type in porn, and the first set of images you would see would be women being brutalized in ways that didn't exist when I was a child. They've created entirely new forms of sex that are all about doing as much harm to the female body as you possibly can, to the point where the average woman now who's in the porn industry only lasts 3 months, because at that point her body is completely destroyed and she will need reparative surgery if she's to have a normal life. So that's what they're selling as sex positive. And I just refuse to, I will never give in to the idea that hurting women is a good way to have sex. And I don't think that that should be a hard sell to the world. I think that that should be understood. And I also, it's weird to me that they call it sex positive when it just seems to be utter brutality and hatred of your partner. And this is not something that I think anybody should want, not men, not women, not anybody.
There was
love and intimacy and compassion and the joy in each other's bodies. Like we call it making love for a reason. You create love when you touch somebody in tenderness. And this is just destroying people. And now they're all into it. Go ahead.
No, there was a instance in Germany reported that in one of their brothels or sex places, they were using female dolls, or they've animated them. They're pretty realistic in many, many ways. But they said that those dolls' lives did not last long, that the men really brutalized the hell out of them. Like, it became not profitable because they were destroying very expensive robots. But that was what that's their sex drive unleashed, their particular kind unleashed.
And it's the same, the men who make those quote sex dolls, where you can order one up and you can order children too. Let's just get that out there. But you can pick the hair color and the breast size and all this, and he routinely gets them back because the men stab them and then they want them repaired.
Oh my God.
So and now we have this huge epidemic of women being strangled by their male partners, to the point where they're saying for women under 40, the most common cause of stroke now is the fact that they've been strangled by a male partner. So this is absolutely epidemic. And I will say once again, this did not exist when I was growing up.
No, it didn't.
Nobody was getting strangled and calling it sex.
No. And I had
this is absolutely it's just absolutely standard in the porn industry.
Right. I was trying to teach a class at law school a few years ago on feminist legal theory, and I was getting tons of resistance about about real feminism, as I would call it. And I said, well, this OnlyFans stuff and whatever, and strangulation. And they said, oh, that's breath play.
Breath play?
Play. Yeah. They always call sex play, as if it's something children do.
So does the singer from NXS die from that? Asphyxiation?
Autoerotic asphyxiation. Yeah. Well, now they're doing it to women, not just to themselves.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. Okay. That's wild stuff there.
This is a public health crisis, and we really understand the depths of this. And these kids, 10, 11, 12 years old, they don't know what sex is. They've never seen it. They're barely interested in it, and it comes onto their phones. And from that point forward, they're addicted. So this is this next generation.
And it takes them down like any good drug dealer, getting you higher and higher and higher, because you need more and more and more intense experiences. And it takes them down to some very terrible places.
Wow. Endorphins are excited talk. They're excited.
Sex is extremely powerful stuff.
Yes. Well, as they say, it's every system of the body that's involved is stimulated, quote, maximally. Like there's no more stimulating experience that you can have just with your body. You have to take something, a drug, to stimulate your brain more. But the endorphins, when you excite one and it excites the next one and it excites the next one, eventually they will shut themselves down because they'll die if they're that excited. And that's why you need more the next time, is because you've actually depressed that whole capacity in your brain. And I want to you contrast that with serotonin, because serotonin has the exact opposite effect. When you have just that basic level of happiness, those receptors make themselves calmer and calmer and calmer. So the happier you are, the calmer you feel. And it's not that we don't have moments of that real, like those peak moments, like, oh, I won this award, or oh my God, I got the job, or we bought the house, or I had a baby, or I'm in love. Like we all have those peak experiences, but it's only supposed to be once in a while. You can't do this to yourself eight times a day. It's the same as cocaine. It's the same as gambling. And that's why it's addictive. And the pornographers themselves don't know what to do next. Like they've done everything they can to the female body. And they complain about this in their own, they have a business journal where they all talk about, the business of porn, and they don't know what to do next. It's like, well, children are animals. That's all that's left here.
Yeah.
So that's why we're like trying to do something. And it really needs to be, in the public, it needs to be a public health crisis, because we're not just going to be able to do this from the background. It's people have to understand how bad this is.
Understood. Yeah. Well,
yeah.
Okay. I can't be addicted because I haven't had sex in like 3 years and I'm fine.
Well, nobody's ever died from not having sex.
I think I'm old enough where I'm like, I don't care. I don't even.
And isn't it a wonderful feeling?
That happens, and sometimes it's a good thing. You're like, oh, I feel calmer. It's all okay.
I'm not kidding. It's liberating to not be preoccupied with sex.
Absolutely, I know.
It really is. Sex is
young people. We mean it. Like, have a good time. Make sure you're in a loving relationship, but also it's okay when it fades a bit.
Exactly. So, okay. And then I really want to talk about, again, I don't want to go much over an hour, but the just abuse of women in general, male abuse of women in general, physical, emotional, psychological, obviously domestic abuse is a big part of that. A huge part of that. Do you know what the number one profession for domestic abuse is in America? Policing. That's nuts. There were two independent studies. Go ahead. Yeah. Sorry.
No, go ahead. You go.
There were two independent studies done in the 90s, which is a little antiquated. Well, I don't know if there are any new ones, but they were independent. They didn't know about each other. They came up with the exact same number, 40%.
40%. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now, my theory is that some people who want to be cops cops because they know they can get away with abusing people legally. Mm-hmm. Minorities, women, whatever. So they're already disposed towards that when they apply to be a cop, because you need to use violence to gain compliance and restraint, and you're tough guy authority. Do you want to speak to like the abuse in general, maybe specifically about that? If you want to, you don't have to.
That is an interesting topic and something that I've encountered as a prosecutor, knowing police officers and seeing, you can tell which ones are going to end up in trouble. You can tell.
Totally.
And the culture around them of not telling or talking, and it's a tough culture to break, of its habits of protecting itself. But it is definitely an issue, and there's been some strides made with education and all of that. And also there are some police stations and departments that are trying to find, or at least were trying to find, a different model to go under, or a different kind of person to hire. I'm not sure that's going to work out anymore for a while, but it's a serious, serious issue, because
those numbers were just shocking to me.
And just wait until you get two cops married to each other. That is not a good situation either.
Well, that's I've heard stories about that too, and lots of abuse there. Because they're both like ready to just punch each other. It's pretty bad. Has Wolf done anything concerning besides the trans jail thing, prison thing, concerning domestic abuse or female abuse by males?
I'll let you answer that, Lierre, because I'm sure you know better than I do, since you started it. But I would say right now, gender's the emergency.
Okay, gotcha. That's at the forefront of your
If
cause.
we can't maintain our sex class, we can't fight for anything else. So we'll be
Yeah, and
erased.
I want people to hear we only have like 4 paid staff, so we're really tiny.
No, that's fine. No, that's fine.
We would love to be able to really just take all of this on on a huge scale. And in order to do that, we need more supporters. So if you like what you're hearing and you think that, we have an analysis that could actually do something for women, please come and investigate our website, and please apply to become a member and become a sister in action, and then to come to some of our trainings, and please give us money. If we could have a staff of 50 or something, we could make some real progress on a lot of this. It's like my dream. I mean, the ACLU has like thousands of employees around the country.
They've been around.
We're like, what are we, tiny little David and Goliath situation here. So we're trying our best with our slingshot, but I mean, we just can barely make a dent in the worst things that we see. So we could use more help and more everything. So come along, check us out, see what you think about it. And we're available, over email. We'll talk to you over Zoom. We're happy to explain what we're doing and why we're doing it and why it matters. And we can give you good books to read and good videos to watch. We also have every year now Radical Feminist Summer Camp. So you can come for a whole week and hear about radical feminism and learn things you've never heard before. And
where is that?
To women, and it's great. Well, we had it in Northern California this year, and next year I'm not 100% sure. We're still trying to figure out. It might be East Coast. It might be in Michigan. So we're waiting to find out. So we'll know in a few weeks where it's going to be.
Of course, we have to keep the location a secret until
but we can tell you the general region, but we can't tell you where exactly
because otherwise
we get violence.
The
Antifa comes and they try to beat us up. So we want to have a nice calm week. We don't want to have to be dealing with that. So we can't really tell you until you apply, but we do that. So we try to get the word out as well that there is an analysis out here that we think holds, and we want other women to have it because I know it saved my life. So.
Well, good. That's a good way to end the interview. I think that summation there. Yeah, folks, check it out if you'd like to. Wolf, W, capital W, small O, capital L, capital F. It's an acronym for Women's Liberation Front. Very cool. I love the acronym. You said there's another one, Ellie, called ROAR, ROAR.
Yeah. Women against women. What is it? Women something reality.
Yeah, they're new. We can tell you. We'll put the link in the show notes. How's that? They're great. It's Liz. She was one of the women who started it. Was on the Wolf board for a while. We love her. She's a friend, and she's doing great stuff in New York City.
They're very busy. A roar or war?
A roar.
I said roar as in girl.
I said roar because in New York, but there's war in San Francisco.
Oh, I see. Okay, I got you. So I was wondering why you were saying W because it's roar.
Yeah, that's why.
Okay, good. Okay, well, Lierre Keith, the founder of Wolf, and Ellie Cypher, a member, a very profound member of Wolf.
On the board, our board member.
On the board. Okay, well, thank you so much, ladies, for coming on this show.
Nice meeting you.
About this is great.
Thanks.
Very interesting stuff. And very problematic stuff. I mean, just really nasty stuff. I mean, it's always tough to talk about some of these things, but I think people need to hear it. So thank you very much. And if you would just hang on after I end the stream, at least Ellie, if you need Lierre, if you need to go. That'd be great. All right. Thank you very much, everybody, for tuning in to Let's Talk Lake County. I'm your host, David Rich. So next time, keep talking. Hold on. There's a little lag.